I'm here with State Delegate Michael A. Jackson. Thank you so much for coming out, man. This is a great event supporting victims of domestic violence. Can you talk a little bit about how important that is, things like this are for this area and for, nationwide?
Well, I can tell you. Well, thank you. First of all, I'm honored to be here. Look, when I was a sheriff, I was actually the sheriff of Prince George's County for 8 years. I spent 23 years with the agency, and when I became sheriff, that was my program, domestic violence. That was the program that we focus on as an agency. You have a couple of deputy sheriffs who worked with me when I was the sheriff of the agency. We created the first 24/7, 365-day-a-year unit solely dedicated to domestic violence in the Mid-Atlantic region of this country. We were recognized, have a terrific team of people. We were recognized by the United States Congress. Our name is in the United States Congress. We're recognized by the Victims Caucus there. So the next time you're down on Capitol Hill, you can look it up, look up the record. Prince George's County Officer of the Sheriff. But there's no greater concern that I think we need to pay attention to, because it's a social ill. It's not only a criminal act, but it's a social ill. It stems from learned behavior. Behaviors that have been accepted from throughout history, different cultures, and it's up to each and every one of us to ensure that people understand that, that's not right. It's not right. You have the young people. We don't want that young lady to believe that it's okay to have someone to push her around, beat her up. You know what I mean? And so, and lastly, I'll say that all crime doesn't start out as a crime, right? Social ills plague communities, and they escalate. So it's up to each and every one of us. Everyone has a role to play to curtail that. So it's a lot of work to do, but this is a great addition to a lot of things that have been going on. So.
And one more quick question: moving forward, what do you see is the most important next step for just getting the information out there to people and moving this whole movement in the right direction?
Well, I think today. One of the benefits of today is social media, man. I mean, use it, and then use it, right? From a domestic violence perspective, just like most other things, like drugs and other things, until it affects certain class of people, it was just incidents that occurred in that community. So the key is through social media, we get it out. You use the sphere of influence of each and every one of us in this room. Everybody has a sphere of influence. Everybody has a group of people that they relate to, whether it's through their church, whether it's through athletics, whether it's through education. Whether it's through someone who's in the General Assembly, someone who's still connected with the National Sheriff's Association, I still sit on national organizations. So we need to be willing to be used in order to stem this violence. So.
All right, that's a great answer. Thank you again so much for coming out, sir. All right, we're looking forward to a great event. All right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
It's a gorgeous day, huh?
Yeah.
They say, and I believe it, that, he brings in the rain to watch the rain over.
Amen.
So, it's an honor to be here, to share in your festivities today, in your second annual event. And I see this key and the hat combo kind of go together. It's pretty cool. I only wish that I could have my queen here with me today. My granddaughter, right? And but she's got a music recital in a soccer game. She would love it. She loves the tea thing. Granddaddy is soft on that. So. I think some of you all probably understand that. I'm honored to be here today to share with you this afternoon and to share your passion about eradicating the social ill of domestic violence. Something that I have been honored over my career to be surrounded by men and women and young adults as well who are dedicated to that same cause. But before I get started with my very brief remarks, and my remarks, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, are not going to be statistic-based. We hear those all the time. I think that as we progress on our journey to eradication of this social ill, that we need to evolve as this illness involved. So I want to talk more to that. But before I get started, I need to recognize a few people. And the first person is someone I met in 2014 while I was on the campaign trail for state delegate. And I met her in Calvert County. And I am very impressed with the character of this young lady. And I have enjoyed our interactions since then regarding domestic violence and the things that she has been involved in, continues to be involved in. And I'm here because of her. She's the one that got me here today. And that young lady is Miss Jennifer Foxworthy. And I've actually, if you talk to the people from the sheriff's office, they'll tell you I tone them down a little bit. Now normally I'm kind of like embarrassed people that I know, but she does a terrific job. Secondly, I want to recognize the members of the Office of the Sheriff that are here. My home. So you already here. They are a part of, you'll hear about it a little bit more, but they are a part of that organization who our dynamic team created the first 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year unit in the Mid-Atlantic region of this country because of the dedication of the men and women who work at the Office of the Sheriff. My face may have been on that, but it wasn't me, trust me. Their dedication is unbelievable. And they are continuing that battle. I've been retired 5 years now, I'm college and that stuff. But they are continuing that. So thank you all very much for what you continue to do in our 4-hour great county. And lastly, I'd like to thank, bless you, I'd like to thank Ms. Carney, Lady Domino, Addison. Let me say something. So, with a name like Michael Angelo Jackson, I know a good name when I hear one. That's a nice name. That is a nice name. I understand that domino thing. Trust me. So I also want to commend you on your character and the development of an organization, and it's such a worthy cause, and its focus on women and children. Yes. That's something that we talked about for quite a while. The social ill doesn't stop with the combatants, right? So I like to commend you on that. And the education that you're providing, the advocacy that you're providing. If you look at the diversity in the room, that's huge. And your work toward eradicating this horrific social ill called domestic violence. So, domestic violence. So I joined the Office of the Sheriff in the late 80s. And it took me a while. It took me a while to get it, ladies and gentlemen. Not only because I've been in the political arena, but I'm a very competitive individual, right? So whenever I set my goal on, I achieve it. I'm pretty fierce at that. But it took me quite a while to understand that it wasn't just about locating and locking up people. Because after a while, I was like, I'm still locating and locking up people. So it's like, this is like not ending, right? So there's got to be something else to this. And, whether it was a V8 or an apple that dropped off and hit me in the head, whatever it was, I woke up one day and I recognized that social ills plague communities. Social ills plague communities. No child comes out of a womb with a knife or a gun or seeks to choke someone out. Social ills plague communities. These are learned behaviors, accepted enable, whatever you want to call it, these are behaviors that are learned. And that's where we all have the responsibility. So today I'm not talking about numbers. Today I'm talking about our responsibility and how we can work together to continue this journey, because we can't walk it down in a day. It started in a day, since the beginning of time. If you've studied anything, if you studied man's history, man has a serious issue being a man. And I'm talking about biblical sense man. I'm not just talking about a male. But man has a serious issue from an emotional standpoint. And there's not one person that can actually control that emotional beast that rests within us. So that conditioning, that cultural conditioning, starts at home, starts in our church, starts in our school system, starts in our community. And also, it has a place in our workplace. And we all have a responsibility. Unfortunately, I'm enjoying this afternoon. Right? Certainly, we will wish to have met you all in other circumstances. And part of the reason that we're here today is because there's still this belief that there is an issue. And I haven't figured that part out yet, but it's absurd, obviously, that it's other people's business, right? So I grew up in an apartment, so you hear somebody going at it in another apartment, it's like my new business, or stay in a child's place or what have you. Even from the law enforcement perspective, at one point in time, you don't have us come back here, we're going to arrest you because you're disturbing the peace, not because you're beating your loved one. We'll screw it up. So, as absurd as it is, the only way it changes is if we make a change. If we force that change. If we are the ones with the voice and with the action to make those changes. Domestic violence has no boundaries. None. No boundaries. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you are. Has zero boundaries. Our community, two counties just last week. Federal Protective Service officer, he has an issue at home, he gets suspended from his job, he goes on a rampage. At a high school, not only does he assault his wife, but he assaults someone coming to her assistance. And he goes to Montgomery County. Has zero boundaries. Our school system, as we show, our workplace, as we see, our college campuses, the university, you can hear it all the time. You hear it all the time. So, while many people believe that it's someone else's business, and that is not newsworthy to the extent that they need to put together some sort of policies and processes, people in this room think otherwise. And that's huge. Because at the end of the day, while we may be in the Annapolis room, which is not the ballroom, as all of us have known throughout life, it only takes a few people. It only takes a few dedicated people to get the task done. And I don't say that just because I'm in the range, but it only takes a few people. So, epidemic versus incidents. So, for those who are in charge, or those, and I'll say this again, it took me a while to get it. Other than being a criminal act or now I serve in the Maryland State Legislature. And there were 28 bills that were introduced this year in Annapolis. And I am asking you today for your help to ensure that more than this many bills get passed in Annapolis dealing with domestic violence. And the only way that's going to change is if you're present and if your voice is heard. Let me give you a quick story. You heard and you saw all the play this year in Annapolis about Noah's Law. Dealing with drunk driving. Right? The reason Noah's Law passed to the extent that Noah's Law passed to the extent it passed is because every ethnic group that you can think of was in Annapolis from start to finish. And I can tell you, being a member of the Democratic caucus, inside of the caucus, and we are the majority in Annapolis, it was a lot of stuff going on in that room. Because there were people who are long stays in Annapolis who did not want to pass that bill to the extent that it was passed. And because of people like you, we have the strongest drunk driving laws in this country. Because of people like you. And we can also have the strongest domestic violence laws in the country because of people like you. So, I'm easy to find. I am very active. I am very passionate about this. Use me and others in Annapolis to craft any legislation that we want. And let's work on it. I've been going to Annapolis for 20 years. I now sit as a legislator. I know how to navigate Annapolis. Most good bills take a couple of years to get through. That's by design. But let's not fall into that default factor that we fall into most times because the system sets up something, a process, that we get discouraged and we just give up. I can guarantee you, if you come down in droves, or if you send your surrogates down in droves, or if you send your surrogates to the district offices of members of the General Assembly, or if you send them to my office, I can tell you that's how you get people to listen. It's easy. We're public officials. Our schedules are public. You know where we are in the community. Show up. If you can't make it to Annapolis, show up to that community meeting that I'm going to host talking about some traffic issue or some road issue. Show up to that meeting. Get yourself on the agenda. I'm a public servant. I'm supposed to be there to serve you. I'm not supposed to shy away from issues that pertain to us. Those issues pertain to everyone in this room, the young lady that's here. The last thing we want is for that young lady to believe that it is okay for some boy to take advantage of her. And the only way that stops is if we stop it. That's the only way. It's the same with the young men. If we don't teach them that it's okay, that it's not okay to put your hands on a female, then they don't know. We can't assume that they know. We fall off on what we're supposed to do. So any controversial piece of legislation takes work. It takes dedication. It takes muscle. And guess what muscle you have? I saw it out on that front desk. It's the power of the ballot. Vote. Vote. And you all have something that many people in office didn't have when they first got here, those that are in power. You got social media. You got social media. If Mike Jackson is not listening to you about a cause, a real cause, it's just it's just an example now, right? Turn to social media. We came to him about a specific cause. This is who is affected by this specific cause. And he has yet to either introduce a piece of legislation or guide us on that legislation. You have social media. Use that. All right? There is an epidemic. I don't care what anybody says. Right? And it doesn't just have to deal with the Hollywood stars, or the baseball players, or the football players. There's an epidemic. And it's time for us to seriously work together to face this problem. Remember, always, if you don't remember anything else, these are learned behaviors. Everything we do, and people watch each and everything we do. Liberties are taken because people believe that they can get away with those liberties. They don't think they can get away with it, they're not going to do it. Right? Our communities have faced this hardship far too long. So, now that we've identified our foe, right? So what do? Let's talk about checking some boxes. One, let's recognize and actually acknowledge that we have a problem. Let's recognize and acknowledge that. Maybe we do it in our household, maybe we don't. Maybe we do it at work, maybe we don't. Maybe we do it in our churches, maybe we don't. Shouldn't be a maybe. Shouldn't be a maybe. Gotta call it. Gotta call it. We call it what it is. It's tough. But it's the right thing to do. Because the first time we make an exception, then there's going to be another exception. Second box, awareness. You all doing a great job. Second year, I just turned out, I checked out the site a little bit, did my homework. Awareness is key. If you don't know, you don't know. Right? And if it's not being taught at home, and if they're not doing it in the schools, and if they're not doing it from the pulpit, how do they get it? Got to get it from us. Okay? Education, huge, huge. How you learn anything, repeat it over and over. None of us are too old for it. None of us are too young for it. I understand that you need to respect other people. And actually, there's beauty in differing opinions, actually. And oh, by the way, conflict is not a bad word. Conflict does not mean battle. Conflict means, hey, you need to figure out how to express your point of view. Probably should bring more debating back in school before you start that. Training. There are a myriad of training opportunities that are out here. There are a myriad of partners that are out here that can help with training. There are dollars that are out here. There are elected officials who have discretionary funds. I'm going to give you all a little bit of secrets on these guys and young ladies who go in office. They have discretionary funds that you could use, that you could partner with. Whether it's the state attorney's office or whether it's the office of the sheriff. Here, state agencies as well. Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. There are training dollars that are there, grant dollars that are there. The identification of valuable resources in the community, that comes from you. It comes from you. You got resources in the room, that comes from you. You can ask. You can ask. Worthy cause, everybody needs to be a part of it. And finally, I think the thing that's most important is the concerted effort to develop sustained strategies to address this ill as this ill evolves. It evolves every day. So in the criminal justice world, as soon as we think we got something that can curtail a crime, they come up with something else. It's the same thing with domestic violence. It's the same thing. This year, one of the biggest battles was now we have to figure out how we redefine what domestic violence is. Remember not too long ago how we were redefined, or how we had to define gangs. What constituted a gang? That took almost 3 years to get through Annapolis. Because you got some people who say, I want to constitute a gang from the criminal justice perspective when it's in certain neighborhoods, but I don't want to constitute a gang when it's in other neighborhoods. So you're talking state law, you're dealing with that balance. Really that balance. But what you have here in Prince George's County, you have the second largest delegation in Annapolis. Use us. If you can't get in contact with them, get in contact with me. I'll get in contact with them. Right? That's huge. So a couple of methods that we've used in the past and that I continue to use. I use a process called the 4 C's when you're developing a relationship or a partnership. So when you're looking to get a grant and you work a process and to fulfill that grant, whether it's with a public agency or a private partner, there are a couple of things. 4 C's, communication, constant communication. So before you all leave here today, it's not my party, but before you leave here today, everyone in this room, it should be, with Miss Lady Domino, she should have the ability to communicate with you all at any time regarding the progress that you have within your programs or any program that you're interested in partnering with her. Secondly, coordination, a coordinated effort. You got to have structure. You got to have structure. Otherwise, things fall off. So if we bring up an incident, or if an incident occurs, everyone is, it's an incident, it's a horrific incident, and far too often, we talk about it for a few days until that next horrific incident. Right? What do we do about this? So, reaction to things, so the reactionary posture certainly hasn't worked in public safety. It certainly hasn't worked in government. So let's make sure that it works from the advocacy standpoint. Let's be proactive. Let's get a team of people who are passionate, who are forward-thinking, trend-setting individuals who are willing to meet that challenge and who aren't afraid of combating the system. Cooperation between members in the room or whoever you're dealing with, and a true collaborative effort. So when you go for the grant dollars, or when you go for the partnership dollars from nonprofits, that collaborative effort needs to be seen. That's the signature, that's the contract. That's the thing that will keep you, bless you, that will keep you on the list of getting that contract, because once you show that it works, guess what? You're my go-to person. Because every business, every entity, trust me, every politician wants to be a part of something that's good. All right? Because they want to put their all right? So use that. Use that. Don't be ashamed of it. They're not. Because of the tremendous effect that this social ill has on all of us, our job is to minimize the infection of it. The infection is with, how old is the young lady? How old is the young lady that was sitting at the table earlier?
4.
4. Yeah. Precious, right? So at the end of the day, our job is to minimize the infection of this social ill so that she can grow up and be whatever she wants to be. Right? You know, focus and discipline on becoming a young lady and living her life. Otherwise, those other things creep in. When those other things keep creep in, you know, as she's developing in life, we don't want her again to believe that it's okay to live this way, because it's not. It's not. So that's a huge challenge for us. But all we need to do is start. Most things aren't work once the passion is involved in it, and once you become routine. So if you look to your left, if you look to your right, you look front and back of you, we have I'm often reminded that we have an incredible sphere of influence, each one of us. Think about the people you touch every day. Think about the people you know. Life's about phases and stages. Whether it's someone that you're still connected with from high school, whether it's someone you're still connected to in college, someone in your job, everybody has a sphere of influence. Use it. That networking is huge. That Rolodex that you have is huge. Today's event, you shoot it out social media-wise, you know, I'm trying to learn that stuff, but you shoot it out social media-wise, you tell 2 friends, they tell 2 friends, that's the old day thing, right? But it works. It works. So what travels faster? Bad news travels. That's only because we allow bad news to travel. Amen. We don't put out the business. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? It's so good, you got to tell somebody. Well, guess what? This is so good, you should tell somebody. It's easy. So here's a commitment. For example, okay, you have me. My experience from the Office of the Sheriff, my experience with the Department of Justice, Office of Violence Against Women, my experience with Bureau of Justice Assistance, my experience with Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, my experience with my foundation, where one of our primary goals was to eradicate domestic violence, which every nonprofit that we dealt with knew that that was part of our mantra. Those work. Those are things that you can use. We're reviving our foundation that I had when I was sheriff. So I'm your partner now, on record. And our foundation scope is leadership through education, advocacy, and we're going to include something that's near and dear to most of our hearts, the arts and athletics. So I'm your partner. Let me tell you quickly about my passion for this. When you are a public servant, or when you are a servant, your job is to what?
Serve.
Serve, right? Your job is not to be served. Right? So your level of influence, the higher up or the more influential your position is that guess what? You now have more people to serve. Right? So I have been very fortunate to have found myself in places, in positions in my life where I've had the opportunity to do that. Whether it was being a president, whether it was when you all elected me to be sheriff, and whether where you all have elected me to be state delegate and a founder of a foundation. I'm anxious and passionate about serving. I want to know where the needs are in the community and how we address it. I actually take pleasure in bucking the system, and as long as we're doing the right thing. So if we can't get out of our own way because we have these social ills in our community, because if I have a pervasive attitude that I can do such things, that is eventually going to come out in the workplace. So who's going to hire someone like me? Who's going to deal with someone like me? So our job is to make sure that this is our community, to make sure that we are focused on creating a better community for us by fighting this disease. So public-private partnerships, I want to name a few for you in addition to what I've already named. Family Crisis Center, as you know, you've already partnered with them. House of Blues. University of Baltimore had a Victims Academy. The Office of Sheriff of Prince George's County, when Ms. Norma Harley was with us, brought something to me and said, hey, there's a Victims Academy at the University of Baltimore under Dr. Stanley, and we'd like to have some of our advocates go. Not a problem. Spoke to Dr. Stanley, guess what? Dr. Stanley was also interested in having these law enforcement officers go. So your sheriff's office was the first in this state to have uniformed men and women to go to that Victim Services Academy, which is, the significance of that is, when you're in crisis, particularly from a domestic situation, sometimes you don't want that person in uniform. There's not that relationship, right? You may have a relationship with the advocates. You may have a relationship with someone from the state attorney's office or your organization. But oftentimes you don't have that relationship with uniform because that's not what we project. We've changed that. We changed that. And so you have members of that agency who are equipped to go in and put on that social hat, that social services component, to say, hey, look, I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to just do police stuff right now. That's huge. That's huge. So there are partners that are out here to do it.